Hi, everybody. This is Lee McQueen, and I'm just signing in to remind you that now that we've gotten through two major party conventions, the Republican Party convention and then the Democratic Party convention, I wanted to make sure everybody knew that in that short space between the Democratic Party convention and then the Green Party convention, which is August 4th through 7th in Houston, there's a lot going on in that short window. There's some down ballot voting for progressives, specifically Berniecrats, to be done. And then also Green Party ballot access campaigns are coming up on deadline. So I'm going to try and squeeze information about both of those in because this is concerning progressive politics, and progressives are where you find them. They're independent, they're socialist, they're unaffiliated, they're green, they're democratic. And so with this, I'm trying to cover the blue and green progressive news today. So, quite a few people have made their demexit. There've been people have been demexiting all year, and there's been a last-minute rush. The closer we got to the convention, and then directly after the convention, there's been a lot of demexiting. And so, I'm just giving information on the down ballot candidates right now that are progressives. And when I say progressives, I mean that they are Berniecrats. They support a Bernie type platform. These candidates endorsed Bernie Sanders, and so they endorsed his progressive politics. There's a list of them on Berniecrats.net, and I'll post that link in the description where you can find out specifically who is on the ballot. And I just wanted to say that even while I checked Berniecrats.net to find Democratic progressives, I also checked the Green Party down ballot database of candidates just to see if there was any cross, if there are also any Greens on the ballot as well. And there are currently no Greens up for primary voting. The voting for the Green Party candidates took place earlier this year, in the spring and early summer. There's a hiatus until the fall election. So the good thing about that, there is no crossing of any of these candidates from the Berniecrats. There's no Berniecrats right now in August and September who are going to be up against Greens. So you can vote for Berniecrats with a clear conscience and no guilt whatsoever. They likely support the same or similar platform, so you'll do good either way. But there will be no Greens for voting on the ballot until November. And let's see, let's go ahead and get started. So Berniecrats down ballot. Kansas is voting on August 2nd. Michigan is voting on August 2nd. Michigan is open. It's an open primary. Missouri, down ballot voting on August 2nd. Missouri is also an open primary. Washington is voting on August 2nd, and that's also open. Tennessee, voting on August 4th. That race is also open, or voting for that in that election is also open. Connecticut is voting on August 9th. Minnesota is voting on August 9th. Minnesota is open. Vermont is voting on August 9th. Vermont is open. Wisconsin is voting on August 9th. Wisconsin is open. Wyoming, they're voting on August 10th. Arizona, they're voting on August 30th. Florida, voting on August 30th. Massachusetts, voting on September 8th. Delaware, voting on September 13th. Rhode Island, voting on September 13th. New Hampshire, voting on September 13th. New York, voting on September 13th. And I wanted to point out in New York, if you feel like you've already been voting a lot in New York, it's because you have. There were two previous down ballot primaries. One was like for the senator and the U.S. representative. No, the first one was for the president. And then the next one after that was for senator and U.S. senator and U.S. representative. This last vote in New York, which is September 13th, is going to be for citywide district races. And so this will be the third and last primary vote for New York. And then you can go back to the polls again in November. So basically, if you feel like you've been voting all year in New York, you kind of have. Okay, so these races where I said that the voting was open, go to your Secretary of State's website in those particular states. Michigan, Missouri, Washington, Tennessee, Minnesota, Vermont, Wisconsin. Those contests are open, considered open, but if you want to know the exact and precise rules of what kind of identification you need, this and that and the other, if it's the Republican side that's open, or if it's, things like that. If you want specifics, go to your own Secretary of State's website to get the specifics, to know precisely where and how and who and what and how much and things like that. I'm hoping that there'll be no more crazy stuff happening at the ballot box. I think we've had enough of the weirdness. I noticed that I keep up with Ballot Access News, and I've been noticing a trend when it comes to ballot access that after the sunset of the Voting Rights Act, it seemed like a lot of restrictions were put in place at the state level by state governments to restrict and tighten up on voting access. And unfortunately, it had a very negative effect on voting this year. But thankfully, quite a few states have gone out of the way to ease voting restrictions and just to make voting more accessible. I think Minnesota has changed from a caucus to a primary and that it's open. And then also, let's see, North Carolina kind of responded to litigation in the courts and I think the NAACP was involved with a lot of restrictions on voting, like same-day registration and things like that. They're trying to make it easier for people to vote in North Carolina. And then also in Wisconsin, there's been some easing of the voter ID laws in Wisconsin that did provide some trouble for college students in Wisconsin. That primary was open, which is a start, but a lot of college students had some difficulty with their IDs. That state still went to Bernie Sanders, but some unnecessary restrictions kind of dampened his vote a little bit. I think more people showed up to the polls than could actually vote. And so hopefully this fix will, help things out for the November election. Also, in California, there's a move towards opening up the choices. I think they have not quite instant runoff voting, but like two front runner. It's some kind of weird description of their voting for the state that's going to loosen up the the greater evil stuff. California is working on that. This is at Ballot Access News. And then also there's a move towards allowing felons to vote if they are in the jails, if they're residing in jails as opposed to prisons. California is working on giving them permission. And even Terry McAuliffe in Virginia is giving voting rights back to felons. He's got to have to do it one by one, but he's doing it. There's been some back and forth with the Republican legislature and some independent organizations. But Terry McAuliffe said, well, then if I can't give a blanket permission to everyone, then I'll just do it one by one. And there's at least 130,000. So it's state by state. A lot of these changes are occurring at the state level because each state covers their own voting process, and so each state is different. So that's why you have to go to your own Secretary of State's office just to make sure you know what's going on. So there's down ballot voting all through August and halfway through September. And so there's like a lot of big events going on with these like national conventions and then the Green Convention. But even prior to the Green Convention, if you're living in a state that's open like Michigan, Missouri, Washington, Tennessee, with an open primary, you might want to consider voting for Berniecrats, who are progressives. Okay, also, I mentioned that there's also green events going on, and besides the Green Convention, there's also green ballot access campaigns. A lot of Bernie Sanders supporters have been assisting Jill Stein with getting Green Party ballot access. They've been helping to get those petitions out and circulating the petitions to get signatures. And Jill Stein's been meeting a lot of her deadlines. She actually sent, she didn't send out the notice, but I saw it on Ballot Access News that the Green Party is on the verge of turning in ballot signatures for the state of Missouri to get Green on the ballot in Missouri. And Green has not been on the ballot in Missouri since 2000. The signature requirements are pretty steep, but they did it. And so that's going to be a celebration in and of itself. Jill's been working hard. And then even there's been efforts by the Green parties in Missouri. I believe that there were two, and then they kind of merged their efforts, and I think that helped with the ballot access campaign. So now I'm turning to the ballot access campaign for the Green Party. This is what the deadlines are according to Ballottopedia. Kansas, the ballot access deadline to get Green on the ballot is August 1st. Missouri, August 1st. Nebraska, August 1st. New Jersey, August 1st. South Dakota, August 2nd. Connecticut, August 10th. New Hampshire, August 10th. Ohio, August 10th. Utah, August 15th. Montana, August 17th. Alabama, August 18th. Tennessee, August 18th. Iowa, August 19th. Minnesota, August 23rd. Virginia, August 26th. North Dakota, September 5th. Rhode Island, September 9th. Kentucky, September 9th. And so even while, some people are voting for the Berniecrats, there's also people that want to circulate those ballot access signatures. So for anyone who thinks that it begins and ends with these presidential conventions, and then, we had a rough ride, some of us, through the Democratic National Convention, but it doesn't begin or end with who's at the top of the ticket. There's still a lot to accomplish down ballot with the Berniecrats, with the Greens, getting Green on the ballot. This is what, we're talking about with progressive politics. They cross party lines. And so if you're at loose ends, you're feeling like, oh, you got knocked down, and how do you get up? Well, you take your rest. You take your rest, and you catch your breath, and then you jump right back into it. And the thing is, it's so important because if you don't vote, if you don't campaign, if you don't fundraise, if you don't work on those ballot access petitions, someone else will. And it might not be a progressive. And so life just gets that much harder. So if you've got some time on your hands, you need something to work on, I think that's something great that you might want to think about. Good luck.